Hello, Shane Silsby here on site in Washington, D.C. You can see the Washington Monument behind me. I wanted to pick this spot to introduce this special episode with Carol Haddock, who is the president-elect now for the American Society of Civil Engineers. Carol shared her journey through public works and into the ranks of American Society of Civil Engineers, talked about the work she's done at the local level, the state level, the federal level, which to me makes her a monument in the industry or a pillar of the industry, having worked at all those different levels for so many years, working on so many important things. We talked about federal legislation, we talked about her efforts at the county level, things that she accomplished at the city level or having to deal with natural disasters or recovering from those. And so I hope you enjoy this episode of the Public Works Podcast with Carol Haddock. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Public Works Podcast with a special edition with Carol Haddock. We're recording this in downtown Washington, D.C., and so we'll jump into that a little bit, but appreciate everybody joining us today. Welcome to the show, Carol. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Shane. It's my honor to do this with you.
Well, that's great. We love talking to public works directors and people doing infrastructure, public service, all of that. And we are here with the American Society of Civil Engineers in Washington, D.C. But Carol, what are we doing here? What's happening?
Fantastic. So first off, I'll start off with the American Society of Civil Engineers. We have more than 160,000 members globally. We are in 177 countries. We have nearly 100,000 professional members and nearly 60,000 student members. And we are the nation's oldest civil engineering organization. So so we've got some great history, and we'll be celebrating our 175th birthday next year, a year after the U.S. celebrates its 250th.
Okay, right behind them.
Right behind. So we're 76 years younger. And so we are up here today every spring. We bring people from all over the country to our legislative fly-in, where we bring people in and train them on how to advocate for infrastructure, how to advocate for issues that matter to communities, having good, strong infrastructure foundations and making sure that funding that's part of the equation that comes from the federal government, that our elected officials understand how important that is to our communities.
That's great.
And so that's what we've been up here doing all week. We've had more than 200 people. We've had more than 48 states represented and Puerto Rico.
Awesome. That's great coverage. And you're trying to cover representatives and 100 senators. So that's a good number for 200. And the association overall membership is roughly what? You think?
165,000-ish.
Yeah, that's a big organization. All right, thank you for that summary. It's important for people to know there are a couple of big associations trying to do good work across the country, and ASCE is one of those. But you're here because of a great experience, a great career. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey, how you got to this point, experience, a lot of great things going on?
First off, Shane, it was wonderful to meet you when we were both active in the American Public Works Association. And so that's a big part of my career journey as well.
Sure.
My career started really in small town South Texas. I grew up in a small town west of San Antonio, and they sent me off to college. And I figured out once I was at the university that I needed to follow civil engineering. It was the one that interested me the most. It aligned with my passions.
Yeah, your passion was civil engineering, you said, and
absolutely. As a kid, I was the kid that was out in the river moving the rocks around, changing the way the water moved. I was the one that was building little dirt cities and delivering raisins in my dump truck. I was always just in that public service sector in my mind. When I got out of college, and I did private consulting for about 6 years. Actually, the owner of the company was very active in the American Society of Civil Engineers and encouraged our participation. And then jumped to the public sector. And from there, I continued to stay active in ASCE, and I also moved into a county flood district, kept in that flooding watershed, water arena, and when I got the opportunity, I actually come spend a year here in Washington, D.C. As a Congressional Fellow. And I was actually working for the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, writing legislation for WRDA, Water Resources Development Act. We can fix the acronyms. When I went back to Houston after that year, I moved over to the city of Houston. And so that's where I got involved in public works and got involved in the Public Works Association. And my last 7 years there, I was the director of public works. So I went from being a water person, stormwater, to being water, wastewater, streets, bridges, everything as a public works generalist, which was a lot of fun. In the city of Houston Public Works, we were about 4,000 people that served 650 square miles of the city of Houston, day in, day out. It didn't matter if it was rain. We seldom had sleet, snow, but rain, sunshine, heat, all those things on a daily basis. It's a great team.
And I like a little bit of statistics, so you would know better than me, but we're talking about big agencies, right? Harris County is top 5, I think, in population, and Houston is up there too. Do you remember those stats?
So Houston is actually 4th in the nation, our 4th largest city, and Harris County actually is the 3rd most populous county.
3rd now, okay, great.
Yeah, it's moved up.
Yeah, well, I always track those because in Orange County, California, we like to use population metrics. Harris County and Houston was always sneaking in there, taking some rankings, so that's good. Thanks for that summary. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there before I ask you a little bit more about Congress. That makes sense now that you were a fellow here, and we still see those when we visit offices.
Yes.
But before we jump over to that side, anything else you wanted to add? Or you had a great career there?
I had a great career there, and I just think it's a good lesson for everybody. When I left the city of Houston, we had a mayoral changeover, and so we got a new administration. And the way that it works in a strong mayor form of government in a home rule city is the mayor gets to pick their executive team. When the mayor that had appointed me left, because he was term limited, we've had a new mayor, and he gets to pick his own team, and now he has his own public works director. And that's just part of your career journey.
Yeah, and that happens at all levels of government, federal, state, local. I was in an appointed position, so that's what happens when you're in appointed positions. But there were some very interesting things you did during your time there. Many, that we're not going to be able to cover all those, but one of those I remember was you testifying in Congress. I think it was on behalf of APWA, American Public Works Association. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's got to be like a 0.01% of the workforce that does that.
Yeah, so I got to do it 3 times.
Oh, excuse me, 3 times. Okay.
Once for the American Public Works Association,
Okay.
and twice for the American Society of Civil Engineers.
Okay.
And honestly, that was an amazing honor because you get to come up here, bring your expertise and your story, but represent the industry and talk about the impacts. And one of them was in response to Hurricane Harvey and the challenges that cities face with these extreme weather events. And the one you're referring to, we were talking about workforce development, and how investing in education and making sure that we had a good pipeline of not just civil engineers, but a good pipeline of trades and a good pipeline of operators and a good pipeline of the administrators and the finance and everything that goes into running public works. We're being facilitated, but we're also being supported through the legislation up here, making sure that happened.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And you did a great job. I can't remember if I wanted to talk to you about the flooding issues in Houston a little bit because it was national news. And I can't remember if you were testifying before or after that, but certainly it was dealing with extreme weather events all across the country. And I remember just seeing the Houston issue and thinking, man, Carol is in the middle of that. What do you recall about that, or what can you share about that situation?
I had been acting director for about 5 weeks when Hurricane Harvey hit. Yeah, so I was not seasoned at this point. But we had an amazing team, and that's one of the things that everybody needs to understand about public works organizations is you're going to have changes in managers and you're going to have changes in leadership, but the team is consistent and they know how to do their jobs and they show up every day and they do their jobs well. Hurricane Harvey was, by the time I got to Houston, it wasn't a hurricane because it wasn't a wind event. It had degraded down to a tropical and more than a depression, still a storm at that point, but it stalled along the Texas coast. Where it originally came in down near Corpus Christi, they had all the wind damage. And then it pushed almost up into San Antonio, which is about a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
And then a front pushed it back to the coast.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so when that front pushed it back to the coast, it refueled itself with all of the water from the Gulf. In doing that, then it was able to just ride along the edge of that front and just continue to refuel itself with all that water from the Gulf. Not just Houston, but a little bit south of Houston to all the way to the Louisiana border, got more than 40 inches of rain in less than 3 days. One of the stats that I used to use was Houston, at the time, treated and distributed about 160 billion gallons of water over the course of a year to all our customers in the region. And we had 15 trillion gallons of water fall from the sky in 3.5 days. Yeah. We had people, neighbors help neighbors. We had people that did not know how to swim and were afraid drive into deep water to help rescue, support police and fire. It was an amazing, I can't speak more highly of Houstonians and the entire Gulf Coast and the men and women of public works who really pushed themselves out of their comfort zone to be there for people.
It's amazing. And I think that ties back to what we're doing here in DC, trying to get funding for infrastructure. Flood control is a big issue across the country, both regionally and local. Not many agencies have a dedicated revenue source for stormwater. And so those things happen, and then you're just in recovery. It's hard to do preventative measures when you don't have the money to raise land masses or put in levees or whatever the case might be.
Yes.
You probably found all the weaknesses in the system and then some during those events.
You do, you definitely do. And many cities across the country have this that were built out before today's modern building codes,
All right.
before today's floodplain maps. One of the stats that I love to share about the city of Houston, I hate to share, but I love to share, is that we got our first floodplain maps in the late 70s, early 80s. If you go and look at all of the structures in those mapped floodplains in the 1980s, when those first maps came out, 80% of the structures were already there.
Oh, when the maps came out, okay.
So they were built without that knowledge. They were built without that guidance. And so it does become very important to partner with the federal government, because these people didn't do it to themselves. They didn't purposefully build in risky areas. They built without the knowledge that this was a floodplain.
Yeah, interesting. So there's no maps. So you build a house where you think you might, oh, it's next to a river, that looks nice or whatever. The maps come out, you're in a floodplain. You're not just going to move the house, and then you have to work through that process.
Yes.
Very interesting. Could talk to you a long time about all of those issues with local flooding, but associations that are needed to try to help carry that message along with each individual city. For an association, you get to be a mass of people in membership to try to deliver a message. So I wanted to ask you about your efforts with associations. Probably for over 20 years, I'm guessing, you were helping with multiple associations. Do you want to talk about that, maybe as a passion or another way to give back?
Oh, absolutely. I say that I have given time and energy and passion to an ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineers, has been my primary professional organization, but I have participated in the floodplain managers. I've participated in the American Public Works Association. At one point, because of my role, I participated in the emergency response associations. What I find with those is you get a lot more out of them than you put into them.
Okay.
And what you put in is your volunteer time and your time that you're going to learn things, and sometimes your time to organize something. But at the end of it, you come away with friends. You come away with networks, you come away with knowledge of how it's done in your neighboring city or even across the country.
Sure.
We met through an initiative in the American Public Works Association, the Big Cities, Big Counties, where
That's right.
the directors and executives got together and we shared what was working, what wasn't working, what our daily challenges were. And have you figured out a way to partner with your health department on unhoused, or have you figured out how to just sharing those lessons learned and sharing the challenges? Because sometimes somebody else may have solved something and they didn't realize other people were having a problem.
Right.
And these associations create that environment for innovation, for sharing, for growth. And so I have always, almost every year in ASCE, I've had some role, even if it's just attendee.
Yeah. Member.
Member. And they're all important.
Sure.
Every single one of them is important. Find your association, get involved in your association, give to, because you're going to get back more from your association.
Yeah, that's great. And speaking of associations, because of your time, effort, energy, I'm sure, with American Society of Civil Engineers and others, you now have the role of president-elect. I don't want to get this wrong, so you can fill me in on that. Do you want to discuss how that comes to be and what that means to the organization and what your thoughts are moving forward to be the president eventually?
Absolutely. So I am the 2026 president-elect for the American Society of Civil Engineers, the global organization, which means I'm the 2027 president-elect. I will actually get our 175th birthday
Awesome.
During my year as president. I am in the line of a long line of amazing engineers that have had the honor of serving the society in this position. As the president, you get to chair the board of directors. You get to represent the society on a global stage. You also get to represent the society to our members. So a lot of what I've been doing is going to student events, going to the Technical Institute or whether it's one of our local sections and branches, and really continuing to carry that banner of ASCE and what we do. We are in a time of change. We just announced a new executive director. We had an executive director with us that had been our general counsel and then became our executive director. So we'd had 20 years of a really kind of calm run. He retired and we have just selected our new executive director. So we're going to be going through a lot of, I'm not going to say change, but transformation.
Sure.
As we move forward. We are, as an organization, trying to figure out how do we bring AI in and improve our member services, but not lose our content. We are on an international stage known for codes and standards. That's what we're known for. And so we're really concerned that AI, because AI is not smart, that AI could actually hurt these codes and standards. And how do we make sure that doesn't happen, both from information being out there that is incomplete or incorrect, but second, it's part of the asset portfolio that ASCE owns. Sure. And how do we make sure we protect that part as well? Because we want them to be used, we want them to be used well, but we also want to make sure that they're not being used inappropriately.
Yeah, in the career of engineering, engineering judgment comes up a lot on what's expected of engineers, and that's looking beyond what you see right in front of you or thinking long term. So I could see the concern where AI might be screening a building code to give somebody advice on a structure, but if it didn't quite fill in the gaps that it was supposed to, we could paint a different picture. So I think that's
very
important.
much so.
You all are working on that. ASCE is also known, I think, in the US for its report card. I don't know if you want to just talk a little bit about that. We're sharing this release. Last year, I think, was the big release, and now state by state things are going on. You want to just talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So ASCE has been doing the infrastructure report card since 1998.
Okay.
And we picked it up because in 1988, the federal government did a state of America's infrastructure. And then 10 years later, there was a question, well, has it changed?
Okay.
And so ASCE came up with the concept of, well, let's put it into a report card. And now we're on a 4-year cycle. So we do it every 4 years. We try to release it around the time that we're getting a new administration or a midterm. If they're reelected, it's still a new cycle. And so the report card is a data-driven, completely objective, using public information, high-level review of America's infrastructure. So it's not only based on just the condition of what's out there, that is a big component of it, but it's based on, does it meet today's capacity needs? Are the pipes big enough? Are the roads big enough? Are the sidewalks appropriate enough? But it also includes, how is the funding stream that comes into it? How is the operations and maintenance funded? Is all of the things that make it necessary to keep. And then we've also added sustainability and resilience into that. It's not just what is it in this snapshot, it's what does its projection look like based on the funding and everything that's here to help it move forward and serve the community moving forward. So this year we made it to a C nationwide on average. That's the highest it's been.
From a C minus?
From a C minus. So. There are some grades that are pretty good. We actually do have a couple of Bs, but we do have mostly Cs and Ds.
Sure.
And the B category would be that it's generally in a state of good repair. And I don't believe we've ever had an A. Yeah. An A is like future fit. The great thing about the report card, we do it on the national level, which helps with Congress. But many of the states are now stepping in and doing it, zooming in on just their state.
Sure.
And so almost every state now has one of these report cards to help with their state legislature as they look at how they're going to spend their funding, and even the funding that comes from the federal government, typically into your Department of Transportation or into your water quality agency, will help your state legislators guide them on how the money should be deployed.
Well, I think it's really interesting and thoughtful on how the report card is done, because it is literally a report card. So you will have the grades A, B, C, D, E. So for a legislator or somebody that might not be infrastructure savvy, they are going to understand that pretty quick. And they're going to say, okay, for these grades, that's a good exhibit.
Yeah, there's a good exhibit. Right?
They can see quickly what's going on. And I know stormwater was one that's a recent thing. We've been talking about stormwater today, but the lack of funding there, I think, pushes that grade down a little bit.
And the lack of data. So little data on stormwater.
Sure, yeah. until you get the big flood that happens, and then everybody goes, oh, there's the weak points.
Right.
So I think that's a really great initiative by ASCE to push that out there as we deal with legislators, and some of the offices are changing every 2 years. Quick snapshot, they get it, and then you can move on to this is why we need funding, or this is why we need regulatory adjustments, or whatever.
And one of the things that ASCE used to just do the grades, but then they started in between the cycles of the report card is how do we improve the grade? So originally there was a failure to act report, which was if we fail to act, this is going to be the impact to the economy. This is going to be the impact to the average household. Then we had IIJA and IRA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and the Inflation Recovery Act, and those brought significant funding into infrastructure. So then we're like, okay, so now it's not failure to act. So what do we need to do next? And so now we talk about bridging the gap, because we had so much deferred investment that there's still a gap. And so how do we stay with that, and how do we keep investing to do those things?
Sure. If I remember the numbers right, IIJA, I think was like a 1.2 trillion, multiple categories. And I think at the time that was projected to be $1 trillion short of what was needed for infrastructure,
Yes.
roughly. And so you say that's great, but there's always more to do. And so we've been advocating on Capitol Hill this week, because the IIJA funding will run out this fiscal year, right? It's September.
It's still September.
So we are trying to encourage Congress to get that new infrastructure bill, whatever that looks like, done before the current one runs out.
Absolutely. And if we don't get that done, we do have estimated that it will, if we go back to lower funding levels, that the average household, right now, the average household is estimated with the investments today to be around $2,400 a year out of pocket because of extra wear and tear on your car, because of sitting in traffic, because of all the things. The costs actually go into delivery of groceries. The costs go into all of these things impact you when the infrastructure doesn't function. And you're paying for repairing water main breaks. You're paying for, somebody's paying for that. Well, it's the ratepayers. If we don't continue to invest at the levels that we've invested, IIJA got it down to about $2,000 per family per year. And if we let that expire and don't keep those levels up, it's actually going to jump up to almost $2,700 per family per year.
In additional costs and expenses and time.
Yes.
Right. That brings it home right to every family. So I think that's another good message, a good way to push the message, I guess I should say. You're obviously an expert in all this stuff, Carol, and because of your journey and your positions you're working through and your time in DC and the county and city, you talked about workforce development way in the beginning, and one of the things you were testifying on, that's a critical issue now in the industry. So do you have any thoughts or advice for those starting their career out or thinking about a career in public works or engineering? Any thoughts for the next group?
Honestly, as somebody who's on the backside of the curve, my biggest encouragement to younger employees is don't be quiet. Be part of the conversation. Bring your skills to the table. I grew up with cell phones and computers being a tool that I turned to after I had thought about solutions. And people that are coming into the workforce today, it's not a tool. It's just part of how you function and how you think. And all of this technology is built into how you solve problems. And so some of my problem solving is actually limited by my experience. And so I need to make sure that we're encouraging people that are coming in and they're bringing these new ideas and these new thoughts, that they're not silenced, that they're not told to sit in the corner and get some experience before they participate, that they're asking questions, that they're being proactive in learning, and that we create an inclusive environment that allows, yes, I need to help guide you to get that engineering judgment or the operator's judgment or whatever it is, but at the same time, you may ask a question that makes me think about it in a way I've never thought about it before. My biggest encouragement is don't get discouraged, and you belong at the table. So make sure that you are taking that seat, make sure that you are participating, and that you are welcome, and that we want your voice and we want your thoughts and we want your input, because we're going to be moving off the end of the line, and you're going to be going to the middle and eventually in the line, and you're going to be needing to bring in the people behind you. And so I hope we create the environment that you then grow and then take those responsibility over and learn every day.
I think it's an interesting way that you put that, and I hadn't really thought about it like that. As leaders or mentors, you think about directing, but if you can convert it to guiding, that's probably more effective. And you can really only do that if somebody's moving forward, right? Pushing. So you can guide them if they're moving, trying to make a statement, trying to give their perspective. If that's not happening, then it gets to be more directing, like I have to pull you. So I think that's a great observation, great advice. Any final thoughts for what we're doing in DC or for our listeners? Anything else you want to add?
People that are paying attention to this podcast know how critical public works and infrastructure is to communities. Communities don't exist if we don't have strong functioning infrastructure and a strong functioning team that takes care of that infrastructure. And so we're so important. And not in an arrogance or bragging kind of way. We're just so important because we are so important. People don't even think about us. Right. They just think about us when something breaks. My thoughts and my encouragement on that are thank a public works professional. I've always heard on Engineers Week, hug an engineer. It makes them uncomfortable, but eventually they'll appreciate it. Yeah. But yeah, thank those people that are doing those jobs, whether it is water and wastewater, streets, storm drainage, solid waste, all of those activities that make your life go smoothly because it just works.
Sure. If the bridges we drive on every day are not falling down because of an engineer somewhere, or the water turns on at your tap because of an engineer somewhere. So I think that's a great closeout on this. With that, I wanted to thank you so much for your time today, Carol, and all your efforts in the industry and the things you continue to give back to the industry. And I know ASCE will be in good hands with you next year. And we invite you to continue to do great work at the federal level too, because of your experience. We need folks like you out there spreading the message to make sure that regulations are efficient and funding is there and we don't make some mistakes. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's been my honor.
Thank you. And for our listeners, this has been Shane Silsby as your host for this episode of the Public Works Podcast from Washington, D.C. with Carol Haddock. See you next time. Thanks. All right. Here we are.
Joseph here, Public Works Podcast.
Shane here as well.
All right, so you just watched some cool content. All we need from you is to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us get the message out. It helps us propagate the gospel of public works. So if you have free time, which you probably have 2 or 3 seconds, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so more people can follow us.
That's right. All we're trying to do is highlight the public works industry.
That's it.
Make those professionals trying to improve your communities look good and raise awareness and credibility of public works.
Yes.
It's easy to do.
Once again, thanks for watching. If you have any content ideas, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments and Shane or I will answer them within a week of you putting it in there and we'll get you the answer that you need.
Thank you very much.